So, good afternoon. It's the last thing, so I guess we can relax after this is done and you can all get away and things. Thanks for coming here, and hopefully I can share some insights and things from 18 years reporting bugs to MySQL and using it and everything else. So, some topics about who am I, some information on MySQL evolution, some information on bugs and feature requests, some comments on product feedback I think is really good and sometimes maybe we don't do enough. Thoughts on where we are now and, okay, what do we want, and some conclusions. So, who am I? I'm Simon Mudd. I've been working with MySQL for 18 years, working there at Booking. I'm no longer working there, currently looking for work, so if someone wants to contact me, please reach out. I've been building MySQL infrastructure from small setups 18 years ago of tens of servers to the large scale out, which is Booking said publicly in the large thousands of servers and things like that. Previously, I used to manage my Sybase, which I think is pretty much dead, but which is also the base of SQL Server, which is used obviously by Microsoft. And prior to that, broker trader in international financial markets, so something like completely different. Doing tech there, but completely different life. Privately, father of two. I live in Madrid, I think as a lot of you know, and I enjoy travel and photography. So, MySQL evolution. I think one of the things talking here, and we want more, this, that, and the other, people forget, where we are and where we've come from. So let's remember where we were, where I was 18 years ago. I was managing servers with 4 gigs of RAM. This is at booking.com, okay? So 4 gigs of RAM, MySQL 5.0. It's not the oldest, MySQL goes much further, but these were production systems, they were important, blah, blah, blah. Running my ISAM. The database, not the biggest database set, but one of the important database sets was 30 gigabytes. But these days people say, well, you fit in your phone or whatever. And less than 100 servers. One of the servers then, I think we were running with MySQL compressed tables, actually did have a data set of 100 terabytes. But that system basically, we had to throw it away because it worked up to a point, and then basically you got to rebuild, redesign everything else. And then, of course, you got single-threaded statement-based replication, which is what everyone had, because it makes sense. You have a statement, you pass it on to a replica. You have primaries, but, if it fails, okay, you go and fix it. Obvious. And running into regions. Where are we today, or where are things up to very recently? So, I think that going bigger than some of these instances can be problematic. So I think 128 to 256 is good. Maybe you can go up to 512. Going bigger potentially can have problems. Warming up the buffer pool and things like that can be problematic. It takes longer and so on. 8.4 LTS, okay, that's good. It's working well. It's stable. It's running well. And the plans for obviously 9.7 LTS in April. We run within ODB. It's transactional, so if something breaks or the server crashes, we don't lose data. That's brilliant. Data set sizes, they can be bigger, but what's comfortable these days? I think from what I've seen, 10 terabytes is a number which it's not too big. Go bigger than that and it can be a bit more painful to manage. And smaller is better, but it depends. Obviously, and then these are large systems. If you want smaller instances, you can scale down, and then obviously the relative sizes change. Running thousands of servers, crash-safe DDL, so if you try and do an alter table and it crashes halfway through, you don't basically lose your system, and it's quite painful. Native cloning is something which I think people forget about, but really runs really well. It's a really great way to copy data between servers when you want to bootstrap something or you want a new copy. Multi-threaded minimal RBR for replication, that runs really well. I think in the 5.5 times, replication was a real problem, network bandwidth was a problem, it was hard, and we kept hitting all the barriers and things. And these days, replication basically is not a non-event, but it's mainly under the radar. These days if you use GR, you've got basically auto primary failover, you can do that. If you want to still use semi-sync, which some people might want to do for right performance reasons, you can use semi-sync and do failover with Orchestrator. So a lot of people I think are still using Orchestrator in spite of the fact that it's been, Shlomi hasn't had time to, or has decided to leave it. So there are updates and things, and I think the a lot of people know where to look if you want to find some updated versions of it, and they run pretty well. Also, some new features which Oracle, I think, have not really pushed very heavily, but which actually is quite interesting, is if you've got if you have a GR cluster and you've got async replicas, then automatic failover and things, there's tooling now in MySQL to handle that. It may not be as good as it could be, but I think it's a good start. And then, of course, the typical three-tier region thing, which Booking's obviously shared multiple times in multiple previous presentations.
Sorry, what do you think is missing?
There's lots of bug reports, so but I mean, the main thing is there's no easy like policy-based which you need a hook. So you need a policy-based thing to, I want to stay in the same region, or I want to do this, or and of course what I want is not the same as Addy, or not the same as you, or not the same as somebody else, or someone else. There's different things. There's no good handling of version compatibility, so it just switches over and doesn't check. Oh, I'm 8.0 replicating from 8.4, or I'm 8.4 replicating from 9.7.
Okay.
So there are a couple of things like that, which I don't think they're big things, but they're missing. But mainly it's the policy thing. So I think the GR, if you talk to a GR cluster, the async replica is aware of upstream, and you can switch to another node if the node dies or disappears, and it will reconnect, and that works. But all the replicas go to the first node.
No, you can configure that. You can choose whether the replica goes only to a secondary.
Yeah, but you can only go to the first node.
Or follow the primary.
Yeah, but you can only go to. But if you go to one replica, it goes to one replica.
That's correct.
Yeah, but you don't. But if you've got 6 nodes in 3 regions, you maybe want to stay.
Yeah.
You want so the placement that's not there yet.
Yeah.
There's some. There are details, but depending on who's using it and how you're using it, they can be. In theory, they can be important. Anyway, so there are a few things missing. They're not big things. And there was I think there was an idea to talk about this. It's being used quite heavily now, and I think works pretty well. So maybe maybe there'll be talks about that sometime in the future. And again, so you see the past and you see the present, and what do you see? 18 years is a really long time. Things change a lot, and people forget what happened in the past. People have forgotten about MySQL. Maybe some people remember it's there, but people forget. And also the problems that we're talking about now, about what will happen with 9.7 and what will blah, blah, blah. In 5 years' time, people have forgotten about that as well, probably. I mean, you can argue or whatever, but you don't know. And of course, the other thing is that everyone's still running, they've got to keep going, you can't stop. You can't stop and wait for things, you have to solve the problems, you have to keep going. And what most people want is that the current database technologies solve the challenges that people have these days. And if not, they find something better, okay, maybe they will switch. So it's a challenge for everyone to provide the better products. It's a challenge for the users to keep up to date with those products and to get and to work with the vendors to find the features that they want. But it's something that we all have to do. So I've been doing bug reporting for a long time. I think Oracle are a bit sick of me doing this, but some numbers which just are a bit out of interest, just to see some evolution over time. The numbers aren't really that important, but it's interesting to see a couple of things. S1 and S2 bugs, basically a couple, but basically in the end you can't wait for a problem to be fixed, you have to fix it. So, it might be critical, but someone has to fix the problem. You can't be down for a week while someone finds a patch and whatever. So in many cases, you just have to figure it out, do it the best you can, hack it, do whatever, but that's important. So then you're basically left with S3 and S4, which is the low priority bugs. It'd be nice to have and things. And you see basically there's a little bit more feature requests, which maybe other people don't do, and I like to say, I would like to see this, I would like to see that. And then obviously I think one of the things you see basically post-COVID, the reporting has gone down a bit. There's multiple reasons for that. And also I think, I've got to be careful how I say there's not many significant features. Miguel and some other people might argue with me. There are changes, there are improvements, there's no doubt about it. But maybe not as many as some people were hoping. So the reporting has gone down a bit. But okay, that's just over time things change, and things do seem to be a bit quieter now compared to before. I did some checking of some of the different types of reports. There's a very long list of different, MySQL, bugs.mysql.com's got a huge list of different problem types. The thing that, and some of these things are not perhaps really surprising, the thing that surprised me was most people won't remember MySQL Enterprise Monitor. There was a point up to 2014, so it's like 12 years ago, where Booking was using MySQL Enterprise Monitor, and it wasn't really designed for the scale of the company at the time, but they worked really, really hard. And there was a lot of interaction, so there were a lot of feature requests and bug reports and things.
When I was working there, Mark was always saying, Simon said, Simon requested,
So, I mean, okay, it's partly interesting to see that sometimes you forget about the past, because these days I think it's gone now. But the point is, it was a good monitoring tool for small setups or smaller setups. It worked, and some people used it, and that was fine. But it's interesting just to see the changes there. This is a bit approximate. The main thing you see here is bugs by MySQL version. Certainly, the main things are 5.7, 5.6, 5.7, 8.0 in terms of rough proportional where the bug reporting went. And then basically 8.4 is much smaller. Again, because from my perspective at least, the new features weren't as important. There were some issues and things, but that's the sort of the layout. So clearly, in the last, up until 8.0, there was a lot of traction, but also 8.0 had some issues with stability and things, and also people not wanting to always upgrade and not going backwards. So there were some issues that the upgrade part, the moving forward path wasn't comfortable for a lot of people. So again, 8.4, 5.6 to 8.0 was most activity slowdown. 8.4 in theory was a cleanup version. So in theory there wasn't a huge number of changes. Things like master-slave terminology changing to source replica, that required a lot of work. If you managed MySQL and hadn't made the change, that required a lot of work to do, more than I anticipated, but it was done, and in the end it wasn't that complicated. And things like Orchestrator now, you can find a version of Orchestrator that also works with that. Then there's some other weird cases, but basically 8.4 has been working really fine. 9.x, to be fair, I didn't have much time to look at it, so no reporting. The only thing I sometimes try to rebuild RPMs to check I can rebuild them myself if I want to patch them for fun or whatever. And I found a couple of issues with that. Sometimes the packaging missed some dependencies and things like that. So a few issues there in 9, which I was surprised about. A lot of people are saying, obviously with all the noise that's going on, has Oracle abandoned MySQL? And I think actually, if we're fair, it didn't abandon MySQL, it's just it changed its focus completely. And a lot of people probably in this environment here, they have a different focus. Their focus is OLTP, MySQL Online, blah, 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 and the focus was OCI, Heatwave, enterprise features and things, and you can argue about whether one's better or the other. I don't think they abandoned it. They focused very clearly in what was considered the important place. So yes. And then I think also it explains that 9.x, apart from what Heather said recently or yesterday, that has some changes, but the changes also are smallish from my perspective, or maybe I would have liked to see more. But obviously it looks promising that maybe some more things can be added there moving forward. Features. So one of the things, obviously, some of the problem spaces that we had in the past, transaction support's there now, it works, you can use it in ODB, no one really thinks about it. Crash safe data dictionary and DDL changes and things, no one really cares about it. In-place upgrades, in the past you have to run a MySQL upgrade command, and if you didn't do that, horrible things happened. You've got good multi-threaded replication, horizontal scale out still works at very large scale if you want to. MySQL's generally pretty fast and pretty reliable. GR doesn't scale past 9 instances, so as a workaround you can use async replicas. There are some features to help that failover in those cases can go better. And then GR has auto failure and awareness between members, but asynchronous replicas don't have a good answer to topology rearrangement and things like that. So there's some things you can do, but it's not complete. Then I think some missing features, clearly, I think data compression. Everyone these days is storing so much data, it just keeps growing. LSM solutions, where they haven't appeared, there are out there in MyRocks, and there's a few other alternative engines and things. These days, the data sets keep growing, so maybe you actually want to distribute it. I mean, it's been in MySQL cluster for forever. It's a different database, different style, different usage and everything else, but it's not that Oracle doesn't know how to do it, it's just that it's not there at the moment. So distributed data storage, distributed SQL layer, and then async replication in some ways is a workaround for the fact you don't have a consistent cluster. And obviously these days there are some solutions out there which might be good. I think also MySQL management. Managing MySQL clusters is complex. There's lots of things to do. You have to bring up, you have to configure, you have to do lots of things. And I think it could be a lot simpler. And I think that's something that maybe has been neglected. Bootstrapping a new node, it would be nice to bootstrap a new node just by pointing at a primary or at a server to make a copy from, providing minimal configuration, maybe user credentials and say, pull the config from upstream, and then just finish up with that, and maybe override some settings that you think need to be different for some reason. You can't do that. You can do it by hand, but then you have to build it yourself. And some people would like to just say, connect to Miguel, this is the credentials, I want my data here, pull the config that he's using, and adjust these couple of things. And then obviously there's been some discussion about extensibility. The plugin component infrastructure is not easy to use. I think it's, there's a definite intent to improve it, there's no doubt about it. Miguel's been talking about that, and obviously the Village SQL, there's some discussions about, different ways, add hooks and things, and then use those hooks, have the empty hook, but then if there's a hook there, maybe you can do something with it. So it'll be interesting to see.
That's been happening.
Well, yeah.
Slowly.
Yes. Yeah. But I think the problem is a lot of people aren't aware of what hooks there are and how to get to them.
Yeah.
So this is moving there, but it's not very visible if you're not sure where to look. If you go and tell me, oh look, you can find the list of these things here. And then okay, the next thing is how to do it and how to build it, and how meant for me to invent my fantastic plugin that does, or component that does something brilliant. So there's and then the other thing is, which in some cases when people have like complex topologies, it would be nice that the whole cluster were topology aware. Because if you're completely topology aware, then you could perhaps have some policy for the cluster, and then failures and things. I mean, maybe I'm going to cloud cookie land and things, but it would be nice, and I think that's what people potentially would like. Then feedback to products and to developers and on products and things. So going back quite a bit, I've seen that when working with Oracle, like 5.6 to the beginning of 8.0, there's a lot of good work there, a lot of integration with the developers, and that actually really worked really well. It's really fluid. I mean, that was really, really good. And you have to, credit them there that there's a lot of engagement. I mean, maybe my situation was special, and other people perhaps don't have that, but if the engagement is good and they understand the problem, then they see where, and they can figure out something, does it work for you? That potentially can make you come up with something which not only is a good first version, but the first version is actually good, and it doesn't need improving further. Otherwise, you may come up with something and it's nearly there but not quite, and if you'd known, you could have suggested something a little bit better. So Oracle traditionally have said, we won't tell you about future plans. It would be nice, and I guess Heather's partly suggested that there will be more engagement, more feedback directly to the community about where we're going, what we want to do. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. How this works in the future, I guess we'll have to find out. We don't know, but the initial noise is good, and that's really welcome. That's most welcome. And again, reasons that we have to give. Why giving product fee? MySQL's 31, fine, but it's going to keep going. It needs to keep. You can't stop. And obviously then, AI tells me 200,000 companies use, and there's 5 or 10 million instances out there. Whether that number's real or not, I have no idea. But AI tells me that, so it must be right. But the point is, a lot of people are using it. So, if it gets better, then more people will use it, and that's obviously, I guess, what Oracle and people like that. And I think with the feedback cycle, Oracle also learn, and also, I guess they want to, and they try to, and everything else. But it's you need to get more people involved, and traditionally I think that's been more complicated in many cases. And maybe if user contributions can be simplified, again it's hard to figure out how to do that. If that can be simplified, then maybe the whole cycle can improve. So going back, and I think, okay, I don't want to be anti here, I think one of the things is clearly people are a little bit concerned about where things are. And I think one of the concerns is there are people stuck on 5.7, they don't want to move forward because they're scared or uncomfortable or whatever. And that's not good, because if they have to jump to 8.0, but 8.0 is going end of life in April, and then they've got to jump to 8.4, and they've got to jump to 9.7. So the upgrade cost, it would be nice to figure out a way to make that smoother. And maybe with very short 2-year periods for LTS versions, I think maybe that might put a lot of maintenance on burden on Oracle to support that. Yeah, lots of things to do. Bottom line is I'd like more hooks. With the hooks then potentially if I can do it, and if I'm not good enough, I can pay Miguel to do it, or if not someone else. And potentially we can get the features we want based on the base code which provides those hooks to plug into the right places. Yeah, and one of the things which a few people have said to me, no, you can't do this, it's very complicated. I get the impression that what would be useful is to have some explicit features. Because right now, how do I know exactly what's in this version of MySQL? I have to put it in my management code. Because I have to know that in 8.4 something or in 8.0 something, I would actually like to know, go and check the features, oh, there's feature Simon something, something, something. Now I see that feature, I can use it. If I don't see that feature, it doesn't exist. And I think that might be better, because then it works across versions and you can list what features are there, and they may all be turned off, because maybe initially you don't want to use the feature on version 0, because it may have some edge cases. You may want to, or maybe test it a bit, but just go onto the new version, test it out, and see what happens. And then later, when you're comfortable, and then again, different people have different perspectives. Some people want to jump ahead, other people want to be more conservative. And right now, there isn't an easy way to match those two requirements. So yeah, this is a thing that some DBAs want stability, others want to upgrade more quickly. And 8.0, I think, caused a lot of confusion, and that's not been helpful. And also, there were some few instabilities and things which also weren't helpful, but okay. Things are stable now, so I guess we just have to move forward. And also 8.0, in theory, it's gone away. We just have to forget about it and move forward. And again, yeah, the too many stable LTS versions may be problematic, but if you have features in there and you can see them and you can turn them on up to a point when you need them, then that might be an alternative way of doing it. Again, some issues there. 5.7, some people have upgraded. 8.0 goes end of life in April. 8.4 doesn't seem worthwhile upgrading to, but you've got to if you want to be up to date. 9.7, I think, doesn't have enough to upgrade for yet. Clearly, Heather made some indications that there will be new things added. I think it's premature for a 9.7 LTS version. I think it would be good to push out the things that have been talked about for April, maybe get a few other bits and pieces, let it settle down, and then, so maybe October, maybe in a couple of extra quarters, come out with something that has a few more things and people can say, oh, okay, it's stable, it's got these things, now we want to upgrade. And if people want to upgrade, they will. If they see that the benefit of upgrading outweighs the cost. And again, you only do that if the benefit is against overcomes the toil. So yeah, the labelling and things. Oh, yeah, you have to be careful with versions, because versions please don't use MySQL 10, because there's already a 10 something which is really be some code somewhere in some tool might get confused and do the wrong thing. So go to 12 once you go past 9, or just have some more 9s. We don't really care. It doesn't really matter to some extent. It could be 9.11 LTS and then 9.24. Who cares? It doesn't matter. And then again, this allows gradual adoption as you want. And maybe if this practice works, try and convince the guys at MariaDB maybe to do something simpler, because then people using one or the other, they have a common way of recognizing features and things, and that makes life easier for everyone. May not work, but it might be interesting to consider. So yes, I think the bug reporting and saying feature request is good, but the bottom line is engagement with Oracle, if you can, is better. And if you can do that with the community and Oracle can move forward and come up with, say, something like maybe the pre-FOSDEM days and have a half day talking to people, what do you think, what do you want, what do you like, what don't you like, where could we improve? Maybe you won't get your feature request done, but if you talk about it, they'll be more aware of it and they'll understand why, and then hopefully some of those things will actually make it into production in the following LTS version or something. Yeah, so everyone wants MySQL to keep evolving. MySQL upgrade fatigue is clearly, I think, an issue, so looking to improve that would be good. I think 9.7's too premature to go for LTS, so I really would hope that Oracle reconsider that, because I think it may be insufficient. And then, yeah, don't use 10 or 11 as a MySQL versions moving forward. Jump to 12 unless MariaDB beat you to it. And thank you for listening.